Hello, I don't know if anyone's here yet. I don't see any sign of it. Okay, someone's popped in. Hi, Rick. Hey, welcome to Thursday night live stream on Wednesday. Just to let you know, it's only this week. We're going to go back to Thursday starting next week. Okay, let's start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so we're continuing with our study of the Visuddhimagga, and just to kind of recap for if anyone has missed the earlier episodes, the Visuddhimagga is a very central text in the Theravada tradition, written by the great commentator Buddhaghosa about 1,000 years after the Buddha, and it's become a standard reference in all Theravada countries. It's in part, it's a meditation manual, but it's more than that. It's a general survey of the teachings of the Buddha, and it's a very organized and structured text. So what we're dealing with today is the chapter 8, which is a further anusatis, contemplative meditations. And it also includes in this chapter mindfulness of breathing, which I think deserves a separate treatment. So we're going to put that aside until next week and deal with the three contemplations that are listed here. Mindfulness of death, maranasati, mindfulness of the body, kayanusati, which in this context is given as the 32 parts of the body, and finally contemplation of peace. Contemplation of death is the first one. And this is to be clearly distinguished from the Asubha meditation, which we dealt with previously, which is the meditation of the decay in dead bodies, to see the body as prone to destruction and decay, and done in the perfect form. It's done by contemplating an actual dead body in various stages of decay. Needless to say, it's not commonly done these days. Maranasati is not that at all. It's the contemplation designed to make your own mortality real to you. I think particularly in modern times, we tend to avoid thought or discussion or association with death. Everyone knows on an intellectual level that they're going to die someday, but I think common trend is for people not to really internalize that, to avoid looking at that. Maranasati is basically designed to make it real to you. I too shall die. This body is impermanent and is subject to destruction. It does say, and this is the basic intention of the practice, it does say in the introductory section that if someone is prone to anxiety, they should first treat it as an abstract, that death is something real in the world, and not personalize it. But the real deeper or mature practice is to remind yourself that I too shall die. I recall once I was with another monk senior to me, and we were giving a retreat together, and there was a very charming old lady on the retreat. She was in her 90s, and so very elderly, and we gave a talk on impermanence, and brought some of these themes in about death. And she came up to us afterwards and said, "Oh, that talk was so powerful. It made me really think that one day I might die." So this maranasati has detailed instructions, and it gives you 8 different ways of contemplating death. One is as having the appearance of a murderer, and the explanation is that death is always present and can take one at any time. It's as if there's a man with a drawn sword walking behind you every step of your life, and at any moment he can chop your head off. As the ruin of success, this is number 2, meaning whatever you accomplish, whatever you build up in your life, with careers or wealth, property, relationships, all this comes to nothing at the end. The third one is by comparison, and there's a fairly lengthy explanation there. By comparing yourself to other beings who in some way are more powerful or outstanding than yourself, and they too died. It says that even the Buddha and the great arahants passed away, and how can you escape from it? One of the categories is by comparison with those of great fame, and it lists a number of names, and I think this is maybe particularly added poignancy in that the intention is to give names that were would have been household words at the time. They're mostly drawn from Jataka stories. So some of these names might be still recognized by modern Buddhists who have read the Jatakas, but they're certainly not famous in the broad sense. So this is it adds an extra layer of poignancy that even their fame dies away with time. The fourth one is as to sharing this body with many, and the explanation is a phrase that's used elsewhere, that in this body there are 80 families of worms. There are various small, and of course nowadays with modern biology we know this. We can actually amplify this sentiment that there are symbiotes and parasites throughout our body, even inside our cells. But the idea that the time they were only aware of worms in the intestinal tract, and at any time the explanation is at any time these worms can become disturbed and either multiply out of control or attack the body, and the person can die. There's a phrase here I want to share with you. Sharing this body with many. Let's see, where is it? It says here, It talks about the 80 family of worms. And there they are born, grow old and die, evacuate, make water. And the body is their maternity, and your body is their maternity home, their hospital, their charnel ground, their privy, and their urinal. The fifth way is the frailty of life. Now, and this is something that we know that this human body is very delicately attached to life. You can die from any kind of cause, external causes like an accident, internal causes like a disease or heart attack, stroke. Anything can take you away at any time. Even if you're young and fit and in the prime of life, you can be subject to an accident. As signless, that means that although the only thing we know about death is that it's inevitable, we don't know when it will happen, or where, or what, or how, what the means will be. So it's until it happens, it's a mystery. As to the limitedness of the extent, meaning the lifespan, so if someone lives even to be 80 years old, that's considered to be a long life, and very few people live even to be 100, and almost nobody lives beyond that. So there's a limitation to the lifespan. It's only a short number of decades. And the final one is a little bit different. It's the shortness of the moment. And that's taking the contemplation to a different level. Instead of contemplating death, to contemplate impermanence at a momentary level, that each moment of chitta is singular and passes away and is never recovered. There's a sutta where the Buddha is talking to a group of monks, and he asked them how they contemplate impermanence. And one of the monks said, when I get up in the morning, I always remind myself this might be my last day on earth, and I'd better make it worthwhile. And the Buddha said, no, you're way off the mark. And then he asked the next one, and he said, when I sit down to meditate, I think this may be the last chance I have to meditate, and this hour will be the last time I might die before it's over. And the Buddha said, well, you're a bit closer, but still you're not right. And the last one says, when I take an in-breath, I remind myself I might not live to do an out-breath. And when I do an out-breath, I remind myself I might not live to take the in-breath. And the Buddha said, yeah, that's the nature of impermanence. So this is again a meditation that it's not what we would generally think of as a meditation. It's more of a contemplation. Buddha Nyanamoli, the translator, uses the word recollection for these, but I think a better word might be contemplation. That you're actually using the thinking faculty to review these ideas, to make it real to you. So this, because this meditation involves a kind of more or less complex thought processes, it cannot lead or does not lead to jhana. The next meditation is the 32 parts of the body, which some of you may have encountered before. It's a very common practice. It's viewing the body in terms of a standard list of 32 parts. And these 32 parts of the body have been, you'll see in different books, they've been translated in slightly different ways. I think some of the terms the Pali terms may be a bit dubious. Here is Nyanamoli's translation of Buddhaghosa here. A bhikkhu reviews this body up from the soles of the feet and down from the top of the hair and contained in the skin, as full of many kinds of filth. Thus, in this body there are head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidney, heart, liver, midriff, spleen, lungs, bowels, entrails, gorge, dung, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, spittle, snot, oil of the joints, and urine. And so that's actually 31 parts, and brain is sometimes added to this list as a 32nd part, although it's not in the original. And it says here, Buddhaghosa says, the brain being included as bone marrow in this version. This is an interesting point. It's a kind of a sideline, interesting point here, that they, at the time of Buddhaghosa, they didn't understand the function of the brain as having anything to do with processing of information or sense data, etc. They thought of it just as bone marrow filling the skull. And there's a passage somewhere later in this text, in the Suddhimagga, that says when a person grows ill, the brain, being a kind of marrow filling the skull, can liquefy and drip out of your nose. So they did not associate it at all with thought. There's also they thought of the physical center associated with mind was the heart. And there's another passage in the Vinaya where there's a pair of a man and a woman, parents, that had a boy that they were raising up, that they coddled and spoiled, and he was very soft and delicate. And as he was becoming close to adulthood, they tried to look for a career for him that he wouldn't be too strenuous. And they went through various possible placements for him. Either he'd have to work out of doors and he'd be subject to heat and flies, or the work was too hard, etc. And then they thought of, maybe we could get him a place as an accountant in the king's treasury. And no, we can't do that, because then he'd have to think too hard and his chest would hurt. So anyway, there's these list of 32 parts. And the practice is to, this is all described here in the text, and there's some a little bit of detail about each part as well. But the practice is to start. It's an exercise of visualization. You start at the head of the list and run down the list, the 32 parts or 31 parts, and visualize each one. And then you do it first in the forward order, then in the reverse order. You do it backwards. And you spend a few moments with each one visualizing it. And after that, you choose one part that was particularly easy or vivid to visualize, and you focus on it as your object of meditation. And this becomes the nimitta for this meditation, and it can actually lead all the way to first jhana, this meditation, if it's done in that way. This meditation has some benefit in overcoming sensuality, but it's not as powerful in that regard as a Subha meditation. Its main benefit is overcoming attachment to the body and seeing the body as composed of parts and pieces rather than as a unitary object, which is an entry into not self, into emptiness. When we perceive things, particularly our body or someone else's body as a compact unit, and then we're giving it a kind of a self essence, whereas it's only if we see it as a skin bag filled with liver and heart and guts and blood and sweat and all the rest of it, then there's really no particular point that we could say this is the essence of the person. Now, there's actually quite a lengthy treatment of this. It goes into each body part with some description. As I said, some of these parts, maybe the translation is a bit dubious, like the one that's translated here as midriff. I've seen it elsewhere translated as membrane or as diaphragm, and by the description, it seems to refer to the tough tissues that are like the membranes that surround the gut, and including the diaphragm. And then at the end, it has a note about the benefits of this practice. He is a conqueror of boredom and delight. And boredom does not conquer him. He dwells transcending boredom as it arises. He is a conqueror of fear and dread do not conquer him. He dwells transcending fear and dread. He bears easily heat and cold, arisen bodily feelings menacing to life. Okay. So that's the 32 parts. And then he goes on to mindfulness of breathing, which, as I said, I'm leaving till next week. And the final one is, it's called Recollection of Peace. And this meditation, it said, is only done successfully by someone who's a stream winner or higher, because the object of this meditation is the recollection of the peace of Nibbana. But it does say that even someone who has not any experience of Nibbana can practice a form of this meditation by contemplating the idea of peace, of cessation. So this is actually quite a short section. There's not really much to say about it beyond that. So I'll leave this this topic for now, and see if you have any questions. Please put them into the chat, and we'll deal with those. What do we got here? Somebody come up with one. Ryan. Dear Bhante, are all of these meditation practices, as well as the Visuddhimagga, for monks only, or do they benefit? Well, that's kind of assumed throughout. I'm referring to the death meditations. Well, yeah, certainly, I mean, lay people are you're going to die too, you know, so reminding yourself of that is, you know, it's a way, although it may be uncomfortable at first, it's a way of really of overcoming the fear of death, and you know, seeing impermanence on that level. When the Buddha recalled his past lives, what was he actually recalling? Since memories are also anatta, he saw the chain of cause and effect. There's some kinds of unbroken consciousness stream. Well, what are you, when you remember what happened yesterday, what are you remembering? There are mental formations that are based on past experience, past sense experience. So, you know, their memories are essentially immaterial. They're objects of mind. It's kind of mysterious. So where they're actually stored is not really clear. If we could say that they're stored anywhere, they're kind of in the field, and it's the way I would think of it. Is that there's kind of a way of the mind tapping into the past vibrations in the field and picking out incidents. Does the stream enter touch nibbana, and this is what triggers the beginning of enlightenment? Yes, that's really the nature of the stream entry experience. Is a momentary glimpse or opening of nibbana, which at that stage for the stream enter is really just a glimpse. It's like the curtains part for an instant and the person knows, oh, there is an unconditioned. Now, there isn't any great deep penetration or understanding of it at that point, but there's no more doubt that it's a reality. I ask because this is a continuation of Ryan's question. I ask because sometimes I feel like only thing left to do is wait for death, except I must stay alive to fulfill parental duties. Is this right view? No, I wouldn't say. I'd say that's too pessimistic. As long as you're alive, there's always things to do. There's duties to fulfill. There's things to experience. There's spiritual growth to strive for. This is not. It should create. If you make death real, it should create a sense of urgency. Not to waste the time that you have. Next question. I find it challenging to engender strong aversion to the body parts via this contemplation. They are all unwholesome and gross. It also don't bother me at all that much either. Nor do I find them overly attractive. Is good or bad? How can I improve to make this more productive? I don't think you really want to develop aversion as such, although that may arise initially. I think if you have a neutral feeling, I think that's really the highest form of this, is to see your parts as not me, not mine. This is the heart. It's a muscle. It's pumping. It's moving, and it's neither. In the end, it's neither beautiful nor disgusting. It just is what it is. Another aspect of this, to penetrate the idea of not self, is that all these parts, and we understand this better now with our modern biology than Buddhaghosa did, but all these parts are performing complex functions without your conscious knowledge or interference. And the level of complexity of what's going in your body is astounding. And even in every single cell, it's like a tiny little life form or machine on its own doing all these processes constantly, without any input from your so-called personal awareness. Next one. How do we know we have attained stream entry? Is there a way to tell? Yes, I've given talks on this before. There is a test, and that is to examine the mind for the three fetters of personality view, right and ritual clinging, and skeptical doubt. And those should be completely eradicated. But the first step is to learn, to study and understand what those fetters actually are, not just to rely on them. Particularly Silabhata Paramasa, which is translated right and ritual clinging. That translation is quite misleading as to what it actually points to. So first, learn what those fetters actually refer to, and then examine your mind, not just once or twice and superficially, but again and again. And you'll see that if they're present or not. Was your story about the charming old lady in a retreat with Ajahn Amaro? Yes, it was. It was Ajahn Amaro many years ago. We were at the Insight Meditation Society. Thank you, Ajahn P. Sometimes we are wonderfully made. Somehow we are wonderfully made. The mind is what needs correction. Yes. Particularly if you read up a bit on cell biology, it's astonishing what's going on in each of those little micro dots. By the way, both answers to my questions were partially cut off, of course. Now that's the impermanence and uncertainty of the internet. Ajahn Amaro is great. I've met him briefly. Yes, I agree. He's wonderful, a wonderful monk. I am grateful for the time I got to spend with him. Sometimes I read the suttas. The Buddha talks about his own body as something disgusting. Should we treat the body just as it is or as gross? The descriptions of the body as gross, or the word in Pali is asubha, which really means unlovely or undesirable. It's a negative. It's a negative. They're intended to counter the bias to see the body as something beautiful and desirable. So when we look at our own body or somebody else's body and we see it as beautiful or desirable, it's because of focusing on, as the text says, certain signs and particulars. There's certain features. If you see a beautiful woman and you feel desire, you're not focusing on her intestines and her urine and her sweat or whatever. This is the third due parts is to look at different signs and particulars, and it may be the grossness is strong, particularly at first, but the real intention is to get past both desire and aversion and come to just a neutrality of, this is just as it is. Each cell is like a micro universe. Yes. If you search on the BBC website, they did a documentary once on the life of a cell, showing what's going on in a cell and how it fights a viral invasion and so on. It's quite beautifully done. What's the difference between a wish to get out of samsara and a desire for non-existence? Well, getting out of samsara, ending rebirth, is not non-existence. It's neither existence nor non-existence. So, vibhava tanha is the desire for annihilation or obliteration, and that's not nibbana. Okay, so next week I want to talk about the anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, and the Visuddhimagga approach, to that topic, which has influenced a lot of modern meditation writing and teaching. It's been very influential. And compare it to this other text, the Vimuttimagga, translated as the Path of Freedom, which is a contemporary or close to contemporary, written, in the roughly within the same century. We don't actually know which one was written first. Between the Visuddhimagga and Vimuttimagga, they represent two different strains of Theravada in Sri Lanka at the time. The Visuddhimagga teaching came out of the Mahavihara monastery, and the Vimuttimagga teaching came out of the Abhayagiri monastery. And they were for a long time in Sri Lanka the two rival schools of thought. And in the end, within the Theravada world, the Mahavihara version won out and is dominant today, and represented by the Visuddhimagga. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you for tuning in. And we'll talk again next week. And again, next week we'll be back to a regular Thursday schedule. I just couldn't make it this Thursday, so I didn't want to skip altogether. Okay.